The Dynasty contenders are starting to separate themselves, and that means it's time for you to sell your first round picks for players that are going to help you win a Dynasty championship this season. The first player to buy is Jaylen Waddle. Now, this is going to be a huge surprise to many, but he just played his second game without Tyreek Hill since Tyreek Hill was traded to the Miami Dolphins. Since 2022, he has played every game but two with Tyreek Hill. That first game with Tyreek Hill came back in 2023. It was week 15, and Jaylen Waddle put up 8 receptions for 142 yards and a touchdown. That was his best fantasy performance on the entire season. This past week was only his second game without Tyreek Hill since his rookie season, and in that game, he put up 6 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. Again, his best fantasy performance of this season so far. And Tyreek Hill is gone for all of this season and possibly the rest of his career. This is Jaylen Waddle's team now. Look back to before Tyreek got to Miami, and Jaylen Waddle put up 104 receptions, over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns as a rookie, finishing as wide receiver 17 in half PPR leagues. You're getting for a first rounder someone who is possibly a wide receiver 1 for the rest of this season, and he's 26 years old. This isn't a 1-year rental on Waddle. This is a blue chip dynasty asset who is also undervalued this year alone. Moving on to the second player to buy, and we have Dak Prescott. Dak is currently the QB4 in fantasy. Now, this is nothing new. In the last 3 seasons that he has played at least 13 games, he's been the QB3, the QB8, and the QB2. Now, again, he's playing games and he is the QB4. This is just the reality of what Dak does when he is healthy. Now, the 3 players that are performing ahead of him at quarterback this season, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield. All of those players on Keep Trade Cut are valued at or above an early 2026 first rounder. Dak right now is going in the range of a late 2026 first rounder. And don't get it wrong, the difference between an early 22 or any early first and a late first is significant. Just this last year, Genty, Hampton, Tet, these are the guys going early in the first round. Late in the first round, you had guys like Harvey, Caleb, Loveland. Does not say you can't find good picks late in the first round, but the difference between an early first and a late first is substantial in the hit rates. With Dak, you are getting a QB1 and you are paying QB2 prices. There is no better value on the market right now for a hired gun at quarterback than Dak Prescott. Moving over to my third player to buy for a first round pick and our first running back, and this is my most exciting, my favorite pick on this entire list, and that is Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Now, we are looking at trading a late 2026 first here because teams that are buying right now are contenders, and that pick is expected to be a late pick. I only see one running back in this entire class that is clearly better than JCM on the field, and that is Jeremiah Love, who will be a top 3 pick in every single rookie draft. There's 2 to 3 more players that are maybe in the same tier as JCM for me right now, but you don't get to play them in your fantasy lineups this season. I see JCM as a very high-end RB2 for the rest of this season to help your contending fantasy team at running back at a position that is very scarce, and I see him as the running back for the future in Washington. Now, what's one of the most common pieces of advice you'll hear across all fantasy analysts? It's to get good players on good teams. Jacory Croskey-Merritt is a great player. I will show you some evidence of that in a second. And he is on a great offense that likes to run the ball, that's dynamic, that likes to check down to the running backs. And with a rushing quarterback like Jaden Daniels, defenses cannot guard this entire rushing attack. Now, I said I think that JCM is the running back in the future. And I get he's a 7th round pick. People will say, oh, well, they're just going to replace him at the first opportunity. They don't have a lot of opportunities over in Washington. We have traded the 2nd round pick next year along with the 4th round pick. Those are both gone in the Laramie Tunsil deal. So there is a low amount of draft pick volume for this Washington roster, a roster which is the oldest in the NFL currently. Running back is one of the positions that they have their youngest average age at. At the end of the day, running back is not going to be even close to the top of their priority list this offseason. And while the team likes McNichols and Rodriguez, they are no competition for JCM. It's great to have them on the roster because it guarantees that they don't need to add significantly to this backfield, but there's no one that's going to step in his way as the clear RB1 on this team. Now, I said he is a great running back, and I don't mean great for a 7th round pick. I don't mean great for a rookie. I mean he is a top running back in the NFL right now. Okay, so there are 53 running backs in the NFL that have had 20 plus carries this season. Among them, PFF has JCM ranked as the number 1 rushing grade player with a 90.1 rating. Now, how far is he away from second? Ken Walker is second at 83.7. There is a giant tier between first and second, with JCM being at the top of the board. Okay, PFF, yeah, there's lots to criticize about PFF grades, but it's an indication, and if you dig deeper, it only reinforces that belief on JCM. He ranks among those 53 running backs with 20 plus carries first in yards per attempt, second in yards after contact per attempt, above everyone in the NFL. He is playing as one of the top running backs in the league right now. He's also third in touchdowns, despite being 31st in rushing attempts across the entire NFL. Now, the only real hit on him for fantasy production is he hasn't been used much as a pass catcher. Well, that's starting to change. He's actually got a yards per route run that ranks 14th among running backs, so above middle of the pack already. And we've seen his receiving work increase. Over the last couple of weeks, he's had two receptions in each game, and he ran a season-high 12 routes last week. We know that Washington likes to use their running backs in the passing game, and now with Eckler gone for the season, McNichols has some utility there, but he is not nearly as explosive as Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Now, according to Keep Trade Cut, he has the lowest value of anyone I will talk about in this video. He is actually closer valued to a early second rounder than he is a late first rounder. I think you can add on top of a late first rounder to go get JCM right now. You are going to get a top 24 running back this year and a running back of the future with upside to be an RB1, if not a top 3 running back in the league. Moving over to tight end now, we have Tucker Kraft. Now, after a week 2 breakout performance where he had 6 receptions for 124 yards and a touchdown, people were talking about him as this next big breakout tight end. He was going to be the guy to work his way up into that top 3, top 4 tight ends in Dynasty. Yet, just after that week in practice, he suffered a knee sprain that kept him somewhat limited over the next 2 weeks and led to more modest fantasy outcomes. Those 2 mediocre weeks have entirely destroyed the hype around Kraft. Add in last week, a bye week, which is great for him. He's had a chance to rest up, get healthy again, but there's just no one talking about Kraft anymore. Now, if there is a time to buy Tucker Kraft, it is right now, and it's probably the last time you're going to have a chance to buy him for just a late first. He has a week 6 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals, who have allowed the second most fantasy points to tight ends this season. And well, if you've watched the Packers play, you know that Tucker Kraft is an amazing player, an amazing tight end, an amazing receiver anywhere on the field. Just look at his stats if you haven't had a chance to watch the games. He is 4th in yards per route run among tight ends with 2.1, a great mark. And that's despite having a knee injury the last 2 weeks, half of his season so far. Now, he's only played 4 games. He's already had his bye week, and he's been limited in 2 of those weeks with a knee injury. And still, he ranks 2nd in yards after the catch among all tight ends in the NFL this season. Tucker Kraft is very easily the top buy right now at the tight end position in Dynasty. Next up on the list is George Pickens. Now, people are scared that with CeeDee Lamb coming back, that Pickens is going to fall back into a wide receiver 2 kind of role for fantasy because he's that wide receiver 2 on the Cowboys. Now, we've seen almost this exact situation before, and it does not lead to a ceiling of a wide receiver 2 for that wide receiver 2 on the NFL team. Just look at the Bengals last year. an explosive offense that scored a bunch, passed a bunch, because their defense was just so horrific that they were playing behind in so many games. That Bengals team had an elite duo at wide receiver of Jamar Chase, who is obviously the alpha for that team, and T. Higgins. Now, despite T. Higgins being the wide receiver 2 on his team, he was the wide receiver 4 overall in all of fantasy football in points per game last season. So we've seen that it is very possible for a wide receiver 2 on their team to be a wide receiver 1 for fantasy. And the Cowboys have that exact situation. They have these 2 elite wide receivers. They have Dak, who can air the ball out, who's shown it. We have an offense that is leading the league in pass completions and second in the league in passing attempts per game. And we have a defense that, without Micah Parsons, is now just porous. It's horrendous. They are giving up so many points per game. While everyone panics about CeeDee Lamb coming back and George Pickens falling down the pecking order, go ahead and pick him up for a late first and lock in a, I think, low-end wide receiver 1 for the rest of this season and beyond. 6 on the list here is Kyler Murray. Now, everything that's happening in Arizona is leading to Kyler having a great second half of this season. Now, we're talking fantasy. I know Kyler Murray is not a great NFL quarterback, but he's not a bad one either. And despite his limitations as an NFL player, those are not limitations for his fantasy production. Now, this is a team that likes to run the ball, but we've seen James Conner go down for the season. We have Trey Benson on IR. We have Amari DiMarcado dropping the ball before crossing the end zone, and this team has no trust in him anymore. And on top of all those running back injuries, Tip Ryman, who you may not know as a tight end for the Cardinals, but he is a great blocking tight end for them. He is a huge part of their running offense. He is now out for the season with an injury as well. So what does all this mean? It means Kyler is going to pass the ball more and Kyler is going to run the ball more. What excites me about this passing game is that the coaching staff has now come out and said that they are not getting Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball nearly enough. If in an expanded passing offense, the focus narrows in on Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, then we are going to have a very good passing offense here in Arizona. And with Kyler's rushing ability, we don't need a very good passing offense. All we need is an okay passing offense for him to get into that fringe QB1 territory. The upside of an actually good passing game means that Kyler has top 6 quarterback upside for the rest of the season. Even within Kyler's rushing game, there is room for positive regression here. He only has 1 rushing touchdown on the season so far, so it's 0.2 per game, whereas the rest of his career, he averages just under 0.4 touchdowns rushing a game. So expectations would be he's going to double production on the ground as a rusher. Now, the fantasy climate, the NFL climate, the Dynasty climate around Kyler Murray is so negative. And I get it. Watching him play can be frustrating. There's a lot of things that make him not a great NFL quarterback. But we have the perfect situation for fantasies here, and we've already seen Kyler do it. I expect to see it again. Moving on here to Jordan Mason. Now, the truth is, Jordan Mason is the RB1 for this team and was from the start of the season. Jones got injured in the second game, so just looking at that first game of the season, he had 8 carries to Mason's 15. Across the 3 games that Jones hasn't suited up for at all, Mason averages 14 carries a game. So his workload has not changed from when Aaron Jones was also on the field with him. Now, if you're worried, oh, well, Aaron Jones is going to come back and maybe he doesn't take the rushing work, but he's going to come take all the receiving work from Mason out of the backfield. My response? What receiving work? Only 13.6% of Mason's fantasy points are coming from the receiving game right now. That means that he is right now the RB23. If you take away all of the receiving game from him, no catches, no yards, he drops down to RB27. And there's also a lot of reason to believe that this Minnesota team that made some additions to the offensive line, that just got back one of their tackles, that they're going to improve as this season goes on. If this Vikings offense really clicks over the second half of the season, then Jordan Mason could be in line for a big touchdown output over the second half. Aaron Jones coming back just means that the backfield is going to coalesce around these 2 guys rather than the carries that others were getting. it doesn't mean that Jordan Mason is all of a sudden going to be an RB2 on his team. Now, in many leagues, you can get Mason for less than a late first. So if you can get something coming back to help you in that contention window on top of Mason for a late first rounder, that is an easy buy. My last buy candidate here is Courtland Sutton. I don't know anymore why everyone is so low on Courtland Sutton. He has shown it for an extended period of time now that he is a high floor player with a high ceiling. This season, he has been a top 18 wide receiver in 4 out of his 5 games. He's had 3 games with 80 plus receiving yards. He's had 3 games with at least 8 targets. Now, going all the way back to week 9 of last season when Bo Nix started to get a hang of things in the NFL, Sutton has 10 half PPR fantasy points in 13 out of his 15 games. He is just immensely consistent. Now, I get it, 10 half PPR points isn't going to win you any given week, but that is not his ceiling. I'm just saying he is never going to lose you a week, and as a contender, when you buy a player for a first rounder, you do not want to see 2-3 points on the board any week of the season. Across those 15 games since the midpoint of last year, he's also had 7 wide receiver 1 finishes. So this is not just a low-end wide receiver 2. This is a wide receiver 1 over the last year. And while he's definitely on the older side, he just signed an extension that'll probably keep him with the Broncos through 2027. I'm seeing in a lot of leagues that he's not even costing a late 2026 first, so you might be able to get something on top of him, maybe some depth at running back, or who knows, a flyer that you're interested in. Sutton and anything on top of it for a late first is a great choice if you are going for a Dynasty championship this season. Go ahead and subscribe to Dynasty Trading Room for more fantasy content like this, and go ahead and let me know in the comments below who you are buying for your contention run down the stretch.